Have you been crying? Sit on the bed, I won't hurt you.
Rain hammered the tin roof of the staff quarters as Emily Hartwell sprinted across the compound, one hand clutching a tray of fresh towels, the other holding her coat against the wind. She had 30 seconds. If she was late to room 1204, Mr. Sinclair would dock her pay again, and she couldn't afford that. Not this week. Not with her mother's hospital bill sitting on the kitchen table like a curse she couldn't outrun. She burst through the service door, breathless, heart slamming. "You're late," the supervisor snapped, not even looking up from his clipboard. "I'm sorry, sir, the rain." Room 1204. The towels, now, and don't linger. That guest doesn't like to be looked at. Emily swallowed hard. Everyone at Kastellan Towers knew the name that belonged to that room. Daniel Kastellan, 29 years old, cold as steel, richer than most nations. A man who had built an empire out of ruthlessness and never once, as far as anyone knew, smiled at an employee. She knocked, no answer. She knocked again, and this time a voice growled from inside, thick and slurred. "It's open." She stepped in carefully, eyes down, towels pressed to her chest like a shield. The room smelled of expensive whiskey and something sharper, desperation maybe, though she couldn't place it yet. "Sir, I've brought the towels. I'll just set them here and—" "Stop." She froze. "Look at me." Slowly she lifted her eyes. Daniel Kastellan sat slumped in an armchair by the window, tie loosened, jacket discarded on the floor, a half-empty bottle beside him. His eyes, though glassy with drink, still carried that terrifying sharpness people whispered about. "Why do you look like you've been crying?" he asked. "I haven't, sir." "Liar," he almost laughed, but it came out broken. "Everyone lies to me. My board lies, my fiancé lies, even my driver lies about traffic." He gestured loosely toward the door. "You may as well lie too." "Sir, I should go." "Sit." "Sir." "I said sit." His voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment he didn't look like a billionaire at all. He looked like a boy who had lost something he could never say out loud. "I don't want to be alone tonight. Is that so much to ask?" Emily's hands trembled around the towels. She thought of her mother, thin as paper on that hospital bed, the doctor's voice saying words like asterisk renal failure and asterisk 500,000, minimum, for the next round of dialysis. She thought of the eviction notice folded in her bag. She thought of everything she had already lost, and what little pride she had left to lose. "If I stay," she whispered, "will you help me? My mother is dying, sir. I need money. I have never asked anyone for anything in my life, but I am asking you." Something flickered across his drunken face, pity, maybe, or recognition of his own loneliness in hers. "Name it." 800,000. He didn't even blink. "Done, sit down." She sat, her whole body shook. This was not who she was. This was not the life her mother raised her to live. But her mother was dying, and dying people do not care about dignity, they care about time. "I won't remember this in the morning," he muttered, reaching for her hand. "But you will, won't you?" "Yes, sir," she said quietly, "I will remember." If this story already has your heart racing, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will completely wreck you. Drop a like, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and stay with me. This is only the beginning. 6 weeks later, Emily stood outside St. Grace Hospital, staring at a small bag containing everything her mother left behind: a shawl, a rosary, and a photograph so old the edges had curled into themselves. The dialysis money had come through, wired anonymously the morning after that night, but it hadn't been enough. Her mother's heart had given out 3 weeks into treatment, quietly in her sleep, the way she had lived her whole life, without complaint. "I'm sorry, Mom," Emily whispered to the photograph. "I did everything I could." She had no family left, no husband, no home, since the landlord had already relet her room to someone who could actually pay. All she had was 200,000 remaining from that shameful night, and a decision to make. bury her mother with dignity or survive. She chose her mother. The burial plot she found was modest until the caretaker mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that there was a family section with unclaimed corners, cheaper, if she didn't mind sharing hallowed ground with a wealthy family's ancestors. "Whose family?" she asked. "The Kastellans," the caretaker said. "Old man Kastellan doesn't mind. He's generous that way. Sign here." Emily's stomach dropped, but she had no other option. She signed. Weeks passed. She scraped by on cleaning jobs, sleeping in a church shelter, applying to every position she could find. Then one afternoon, an email arrived, an interview invitation from Kastellan Group's HR department, for an entry-level administrative role she barely remembered applying for. She almost didn't go, but hunger has a way of silencing hesitation. The interview went better than she expected. 2 weeks later, she was hired, not as a cleaner this time, but as a junior operations assistant, thanks to her diploma in business administration, the one she'd earned years ago before life forced her into cleaning jobs just to eat. Her first day, she walked the marble floors of Kastellan Towers in a borrowed blouse, heart-pounding, praying no one recognized her from her cleaning days. "You're the new girl," said a voice behind her. She turned to find a young man with a warm, teasing smile. "Marcus, I run logistics. Welcome to the madhouse." "Emily, thank you." "Word of advice," Marcus said, lowering his voice. "Stay off the executive floor unless summoned. The CEO doesn't do warmth." "I've heard." "No, you haven't, not really." Marcus shook his head. He fired 3 department heads last month for a rounding error on a supplier invoice. People call him the Glacier. Cold, unmovable, and if you get in his way, he will bury you. Emily nodded, filing the warning away. She had no intention of ever crossing paths with Daniel Kastellan again. Fate, of course, had other plans. 3 days later, she stepped into the executive elevator, arms full of files, and the doors opened on the top floor to reveal the very man from that hotel room, dressed now in an impeccable navy suit, phone pressed to his ear, barking instructions to someone about a merger. He glanced at her. His eyes narrowed slightly, some flicker of memory tugging at him, but he said nothing and walked past. She exhaled, relieved. He didn't remember. He truly didn't remember. She should have felt safe. Instead, something in her chest ached. The bullying started almost immediately. The kind that didn't announce itself loudly, but crept in through sideways glances and whispered comments in the break room. "Did you hear she used to clean toilets here?" One colleague murmured, just loud enough for Emily to catch as she passed. "How does someone go from mop to memo in 6 months? Something's not right." "Maybe she's sleeping with someone in HR." Emily kept her head down and her mouth shut. She needed this job. Then came the pregnancy test. She sat on the bathroom floor of a cheap clinic, staring at the 2 pink lines, the room spinning around her. She counted backward, 9 weeks. It matched perfectly with that night. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She had taken the pill Daniel handed her that night. She remembered him insisting, calling it protection, slurring something about not wanting complications. She had trusted him. Now she understood with sick clarity that whatever he'd given her had done nothing at all. She had 2 choices: tell him and risk her career, her reputation, everything, or disappear and raise the child alone, the way her mother had raised her. She chose silence for now. "Before we go further, I need you to do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and trust me, the next part of Emily's story is about to turn everything upside down. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Daniel will remember her? Let's continue." Emily managed to hide the pregnancy for 4 months, wearing looser clothes, skipping lunch with colleagues to avoid questions. But the universe was not finished testing her. She was reviewing quarterly reports late one evening when her supervisor burst into her office. face pale. "The CEO wants you in his office, now." Her blood ran cold. Did I do something wrong? "I don't know, just go." She walked the long hallway to his office as though walking toward an execution. When she entered, Daniel Kastellan stood by the window, back to her, silhouetted against the city lights. "You requested medical leave next Tuesday," he said without turning. "For a hospital appointment. Care to explain, given you haven't taken a single sick day in 6 months?" "It's a personal matter, sir. Everything in this company is my business." He turned, and his eyes swept over her, lingering, really looking at her for the first time. Something shifted in his expression, some buried recognition clawing its way to the surface. "Have we met before?" Her heart stopped. "No, sir." "You look familiar." He stepped closer, studying her face like a puzzle he almost remembered solving. The towels, the rain, a hotel room. His voice dropped to something dangerous and quiet. "It was you." "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me." He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. "You were the girl from that night, the one who said her mother was dying." Emily's composure cracked. Tears welled despite her every effort to hold them back. "Yes," she whispered, "it was me." Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because you're the CEO and I'm nobody. Because that night was a mistake born out of desperation, not something I wanted to be remembered for. Because—" her voice broke. "Because what?" She pressed a hand against her stomach, unable to hide it any longer. "Because I'm carrying your child, and I was terrified of exactly this conversation." Daniel went rigid, the color draining from his face. That's not possible, I don't." "The pill you gave me that night wasn't what you thought it was. I don't know if it was expired or if you handed me the wrong thing, but it didn't work, sir. I never asked you for anything beyond that night. I never intended to trap you or use this child as leverage. I only wanted to survive." His jaw tightened, unreadable fury and disbelief warring across his face. "I need proof." "Then get proof," she said, voice suddenly steady, anger flooding in to replace the fear. "But do not stand there and accuse me of scheming when I've spent every day since that night trying to disappear from your life, not insert myself into it." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, "Don't go anywhere. I'll have legal draw up a confidentiality agreement, and I'll arrange a paternity test the moment the baby is born. Until then, you will not resign, you will not speak to the press, and you will not tell a single soul in this building." "Understood, sir." He turned back to the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "And Emily?" She paused at the door, surprised he even remembered her name. "I'm sorry," he said, so quietly she almost missed it. "For that night, for all of this." She left without responding, because some apologies come too late to mean anything. Word travels fast in a company full of gossip-hungry employees, and though Daniel tried to keep things quiet, whispers began circulating within days. Emily found herself increasingly isolated, colleagues suddenly cold, invitations to lunch mysteriously drying up. The worst came from Diana Ashford, Daniel's on-again off-again fiancée, a woman as polished and sharp as broken glass. She cornered Emily in the parking garage one evening, arms crossed, smile venomous. "So you're the little cleaner who thinks she's climbed her way into my fiancé's life." "I never claimed anything, ma'am." "Save it. Everyone knows women like you. You saw an opportunity and you took it. A sob story about a dying mother, a drunk billionaire, and now, how convenient, a pregnancy." Diana laughed, cold and sharp. "Did you plan the whole thing from the start?" "I did not plan this," Emily said, voice trembling but firm. "I lost my mother because of that night. I lost my dignity. If you think I wanted any of this, you understand nothing about desperation." "Save your speech for someone who cares. Daniel will never marry a nobody. He has an empire to protect, a legacy to uphold. You are a mistake. He will erase the moment that child is born." Emily said nothing further, walking away with her chin high, though her hands shook the entire drive home. That night, alone in her small rented room, she pressed both palms to her stomach and whispered, "It's just us, little one. Just like it was always just me and my mother. We'll be fine." We're halfway through Emily's story, and things are about to get so much more intense. If you're rooting for her, let me know in the comments, and please, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss where this goes. Like the video if you're emotionally invested already, because trust me, you should be. 3 weeks later, an elderly man appeared at Emily's desk, leaning heavily on a mahogany cane, eyes sharp despite his frail frame. She recognized him instantly from company portraits. Augustus Kastellan, Daniel's grandfather and company founder, a man rumored to have retired from daily operations but never truly relinquished control. "You're the girl," he said without preamble. "Sorry." "The one carrying my great-grandchild. Sit, we need to talk." Emily sat, heart hammering. "My grandson tells me this was a mistake, a drunken accident he regrets." The old man studied her with unsettling intensity. "But I don't believe in accidents. I believe in fate wearing inconvenient disguises. Sir, I don't want anything from your family. I only want to raise my child in peace." "Peace," Augustus repeated, almost amused. "There is no peace in this family, child, only duty. And you, whether you like it or not, are now tied to that duty." He leaned forward. "I am dying. Heart failure, the doctors say. Months, maybe less. My only wish before I go is to see my great-grandchild born into a stable home with 2 parents, a proper name, a proper marriage, not scandal, not shame. Sir, Daniel doesn't want to marry me. He barely tolerates being in the same room as me." "Then he will learn to." Augustus rose slowly, cane tapping against the marble floor. "I built this empire from nothing, Emily. I know how to make people bend to necessity. Expect a proposal within the week, not from love, perhaps, but from responsibility. Love can come later if you're both willing to let it." He left before she could respond, and Emily sat frozen at her desk, wondering how her life had spiraled so completely beyond her control. The proposal came, exactly as Augustus predicted, delivered not with flowers or romance but with cold, businesslike precision. Daniel summoned her to his office and slid a folder across the desk. "A contract," he said. 2 years of marriage for appearances. My grandfather wants a stable image before he passes. In exchange, you and the child will receive full financial security, a home, education funds, medical coverage, and a settlement of $50 million at the end of the term, should you choose to leave." Emily stared at the document, humiliation burning hot in her throat. "You're offering me a severance package for marrying you." "I'm offering you security most women in your position would kill for." "I'm not most women." She closed the folder and pushed it back toward him. "If I do this, it will not be for money. It will be for my child, so they grow up knowing both parents, even if those parents share nothing but a signature." Something in his expression shifted. Respect, perhaps, though he'd never admit it. "Fine, for the child, then." They married 2 weeks later in a quiet, private ceremony attended by only a handful of relatives and staff. Emily wore a simple ivory gown, Daniel a black suit, both of them performing the motions of joy neither felt. Only Augustus, seated in the front row with tears in his ancient eyes, seemed genuinely happy. "Finally," he whispered to no one in particular, "finally, this family has hope again." Married life, however, was far from peaceful. Emily moved into the Kastellan estate, a sprawling manor that felt more like a museum than a home. Daniel remained distant, working late, sleeping in a separate wing, speaking to her only when necessary. The isolation might have broken her, if not for Beatrice, the family's longtime housekeeper, who took a liking to Emily almost immediately. "He wasn't always like this, you know," Beatrice confided one evening as they sat in the kitchen. Emily's growing belly making it hard to sit comfortably in any chair. Daniel used to laugh, used to run through this house like it was the whole world. Then his parents died in that plane crash when he was 19, and something in him just closed. I didn't know that, Emily admitted softly. Nobody does. He doesn't let people close enough to know. Beatrice patted her hand. But I've watched him check on you through the security cameras more than once. Watched him ask the chef to prepare foods for your cravings without ever telling you. That boy cares more than he lets himself feel. Emily didn't know what to do with that information, so she tucked it away, close to her heart, and said nothing. Weeks passed. Small gestures began to accumulate, a car seat quietly purchased and left in the nursery, prenatal vitamins appearing on her nightstand. A doctor arranged for her monthly checkups without being asked. Daniel never spoke of these things, never took credit, but Emily noticed, and something in her chest, despite every reason not to, began to soften. We're getting close to the twist you didn't see coming, and I promise it's worth the wait. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to like, comment your predictions, and subscribe for more stories just like this one. Now, back to Emily and Daniel. The twist came on a stormy evening, 7 months into Emily's pregnancy. When Diana returned to the estate uninvited, mascara streaked down her face, screaming accusations at the front gate until security let her through out of sheer exhaustion. "You think you've won?" Diana shrieked, storming into the living room where Emily sat reading. "You think that baby makes you family? Let me tell you something about the Kastellans, you desperate little gold digger. Daniel's parents didn't die in an accident. My father was on the board that covered it up. Daniel's father was about to expose massive fraud within the company, fraud my father orchestrated. That accident was sabotage." Emily's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that this entire family is built on lies, and you've married straight into the middle of it." Diana laughed, wild and unhinged. "I only stayed with Daniel this long to protect my father's secret, but if you think I'll let some cleaner take my place..." "Enough." Daniel's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stood in the doorway, face carved from stone, having clearly heard every word. "Daniel, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That your father murdered my parents and you've spent years pretending to love me to keep me from ever finding out." His voice shook with barely controlled rage. "Get out of my house, now, and pray I don't have you arrested before morning." Diana fled sobbing, leaving chaos in her wake. Daniel sank onto the couch beside Emily, hands trembling for the first time since she'd known him. "I need to look into this," he said quietly. "I need to know the truth." "I'll help you," Emily said, taking his hand without thinking. "Whatever you need." He looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time, something raw and unguarded passed between them. The investigation took 2 agonizing months, during which Daniel systematically unearthed evidence of the fraud Diana's father had orchestrated years earlier. Falsified safety records, bribed officials. A plane deliberately tampered with to prevent his father from testifying against the board. The revelation shattered what remained of the company's old guard, resulting in arrests, resignations, and a public reckoning that dominated headlines for weeks. Through it all, Emily stood by Daniel's side, not out of contractual obligation, but because she had come, somewhere along the way, to genuinely care for the broken man beneath the cold exterior. The night the twins were born, a boy and a girl, tiny and perfect, Daniel held his children for the first time with tears streaming freely down his face, something Emily had never once seen from him. "I don't deserve this," he whispered, "any of it, not after how I treated you." "You've changed," Emily said gently. "That's what matters." "I want a real marriage," he said suddenly, gripping her hand. "Not a contract, not an arrangement for my grandfather's sake. I want you, Emily. I think I've wanted you since that stormy night, even before I understood what that meant. I was too broken to know how to hold on to anything good. I'm asking you now properly, soberly, with my whole heart, will you stay? Not because of a document, because I love you." Emily looked down at her children, then back at the man who had once been a stranger in a rain-soaked hotel room, and felt something inside her finally settle. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have for a while now." Augustus Castellan lived just long enough to hold his great-grandchildren, passing peacefully in his sleep 3 months later with a smile on his face, whispering to Beatrice moments before that he had finally seen this family made whole again. Emily buried him beside his own son, in the same family section where her mother now rested, two women, once strangers, forever tied together by the family they had both, in their own way, saved. Years later, when people asked how the cold, unfeeling CEO of Castellan Group had transformed into a devoted husband and father, Daniel would simply smile and say, "A cleaner walked into my life during the darkest storm I'd ever known, and she never once let me drown." And Emily, watching her children grow surrounded by more love than she ever thought possible, understood at last that every desperate choice, every humiliation, every tear shed in silence had led her exactly where she was always meant to be. If this story moved you even half as much as it moved me writing it, please hit subscribe right now. It truly makes a difference for this channel. Drop a comment and tell me your favorite moment from Emily's journey. Give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that even the darkest storms eventually pass. Thank you for watching until the very end. I'll see you in the next story.